found some newspaper clippings from 1897 that caught my attention, and I pieced them together. Some forgotten and tragic hillbilly history. The information came from a couple papers, including the Lexington Leader. The first article was called Exciting Times in Farmers, Kentucky. So, what was so exciting? Well, I'm not sure that's the word I would use. More like terrible or gruesome. But here's the story. On Christmas Eve in Moorhead, Kentucky, at a place called Farmers, Marshal William P. Blunt found himself dealing with a troubling situation. 3 men, caught inebriated, were arrested. 2 of them made bail and left. But J. Monroe, Padgett, or as most called him, simply Mo faced a different fate. His bond didn't meet the requirements. In other words, he didn't have enough money to get out, so he remained locked up. Mo made a desperate vow. He threatened to set the jail on fire if he was kept inside. Not long after his threat, about 6:30 a.m., chaos erupted. Mo kicked over the stove, igniting flames that quickly spread. He was hoping to burn his way out of the jail. No, this wasn't smart, but Mo was drunk, and drunk people do stupid things. Deputy Marshal Kendall was supposed to be watching Mo, but he was nowhere to be found. When the door was finally broken down, it was too late. Mo lay motionless in the corner, consumed by smoke and fire. The blaze raged on, blocking any chance of rescue. Once the flames were extinguished, his remains were found, and it was grim. Much of his body was severely burned, his legs nothing more than charred stubs. Now, on the other side of town, his wife Nancy waited, counting the minutes until he returned. Their 3 young children hung up stockings earlier, dreaming of Santa Claus and the gifts he might bring. Now, as the night wore on, Nancy's anxiety began to grow. She eventually managed to lay down and fell asleep on the couch. But suddenly, screams of fire pierced the air outside, joined by the frantic sound of village bells. Panic surged within Nancy. Her husband hadn't come home. With dread filling her heart, she remembered his bad habits, and her fears began to become confirmed when she learned the jail was on fire, or as they called it in the paper, the calaboose. She rushed to the scene only to find others already there. The building remained locked tight before anyone could find a key. Flames surged around the cell. Shouts for help echoed from within the jail and then faded into haunting moans. So that kind of sounds like there's other people in there. Finally, a chilling silence fell, marking the loss of life. The distraught Nancy clasped her hands together, tears streaming down her face as she called for her husband. Surrounding her, neighbors attempted to offer comfort. Though their efforts fell flat, she watched in horror as her husband's lifeless body was pulled from the rubble. The charred remains were taken to Mo's residence, where joy was replaced with grief. Another article said fire had consumed the lockup. It was ignited because the stove, tipped by a drunken inmate, collapsed. As the day dragged on, resentment grew among Mo's friends towards Marshal Blunt, the officer who had locked him up on Christmas Eve. Tensions ran high, with whispers of lynching rippling through the crowd. Alcohol fueled the unrest. Blunt sought refuge in his home, sending a warning to authorities in Moorhead for protection. County Judge J.M. Carey, County Attorney Z.T. Young, Town Marshal Day, and Sheriff Richard Causey gathered a posse and rushed to Farmers by 8:30 that evening. They joined Blunt, but reports suggested no immediate violence despite the alarming situation. The following day, it became clear that it was Deputy Marshal O.A. Kendall, not Blunt, who had arrested Mo. Days later, Kendall found himself in cuffs in Maysville, Kentucky, facing charges for negligence leading to Mo's tragic death. Kendall insisted on his innocence, but feared for his safety if he returned to Rowan. Mo's widow, Nancy, filed a $10,000 lawsuit against the town, demanding justice for the harm caused by this negligence. The echoes of that night still lingered, a painful reminder of a Christmas that had turned from celebration to catastrophe. Moving forward 3 years later, in 1899, Moe's widow, Nancy Elizabeth Hardin, remarried Fleming Ingle, but he eventually died in 1948. Nancy went on to live till July 25th, 1964, at the age of 93. After the devastating jail fire, Blunt relocated. He found work as a blacksmith, a farmer, and later in the timber business. Blunt met a tragic end when a log crushed him while he was hauling timber. He left behind a wife and 2 children. It was said in the papers that Mrs. Blunt was from one of the county's prominent families, and facing unimaginable grief of her husband's sudden and tragic death had left her in utter despair. So next Christmas Eve, just stay home. Thank you for watching to the end, and we'll see you next time on the Hillbilly Files.